Hey guys, so we do have some royal news about the coronation and some few updates, but we want to talk tonight about the royal carriages because it's very interesting. We will be seeing Camilla and Charles riding around in these carriages, and I always thought it was one carriage, but it's more than one. And so we're going to break that down tonight and also talk about a little bit of royal gossip. And we are still waiting to hear whether Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are going to attend King Charles and Queen Camilla's coronation because we still don't know. Hopefully we'll find out soon. So guys, I am Deanna from Hot for History. I'm really happy that you are here where I give you some royal news, some royal gossip, and we are giving you some information about history content that you may not have thought about, some quirky history content. And I appreciate your, when you subscribe and when you share and all of that. But we're going to kind of go into a deep dive tonight just about these vehicles, these carriages that we've seen. It's like, why are they still using carriages? It's regal. It's fun. Thank you so much, Rara. So it's regal and it's fun to have these carriages. It's unusual. We don't see it very often unless we go to Disney World and we're looking at Cinderella, which I live right next to Disney World. So I do see this quite often. But there's going to be a lot of pomp and circumstance on May 6th, which is the big coronation day, which coincidentally is on a bank holiday in the UK. It's also the anniversary date of when King Edward VII passed away, and it's some kind of Greek religious holiday, I think. And so that's why they have the date. So we're going to talk a little bit about this whole, deal regarding the carriages. How is everybody doing? Tell me where you're coming from. I'm really curious to hear where you're from because I'm just interested. We do have different state coaches that they're going to be riding on. Hold on a second. I kind of fast forwarded through this. Okay, there's 2 coaches that they're going to have in the coronation. I really don't like all of the hate directed at Prince Harry and his wife. Yeah, it's a little bit over the top, I think, especially right now. Everybody's a little ticked off. North Carolina, Washington, D.C. We'll get into that a little bit, Pat. But you're safe here. You're safe here because people are, they have mixed feelings. Waterville, New York, and we welcome you. I lived in New York City for years, Southern California. I have my daughter in Los Angeles living there. In Hollywood, Missouri, welcome. It's amazing how all of us are fascinated by the royal family and about this whole coronation thing that's happening. It is a little, I don't know, it's kind of unusual for us Americans to kind of go crazy about it, but it is interesting. It's a historic time. I normally don't cover, gossipy kind of things, but we are watching the monarchy shift, especially with the queen passing away. And so there's a lot of history being made before our eyes. Angela, I'm also in Florida. I'm in Orlando. I like Harry, but I think should work out with his dad. Yeah, let's talk about all that in a hot minute, or I'll just throw that in between. Okay, I don't know if you guys are fascinated by this, but I started to research these carriages. Okay, the carriages, and they're really fascinating. There's actually 2. So let me read the CNN article. Let me go back a little bit because I think I fast forwarded through some of this stuff. Okay, so I'm going to go back here if it lets me. Okay, all right. So we're going to talk about this: carriages, crowns, jewels, and an emoji. Okay, I'm not following that as much, but some distance to Hollywood or the beach, the mountains, or they're kind of close to the beach, I think. Okay, so Buckingham Palace on Sunday, which, by the way, they had a big Easter event. We got to see Kate wearing a beautiful blue dress, which jacket I'll talk about later. We saw the Wales kids. We saw Prince Andrew there, which is a sign that he'll probably be playing some part in the coronation. But the Buckingham Palace revealed more details. The new British sovereign will be crowned alongside Camilla, which we know in what they describe as a deeply religious service at Westminster Abbey that will take place on the morning of May 6th. By the way, there's apparently some butting of head between Archbishop of Canterbury, Justice Justin Welby, and the king, because the king wants to involve more denominations or more religious. I don't know if it's really more religions, I think, because he's already involving the Greek Orthodox Church, which is sort of a nod to his history. But accordingly, or apparently, there's a little bit of a, they're butting heads a little bit. But there is going to be 2 processionals. So this is what we're going to talk about today. There's a processional from Buckingham Palace to Westminster Abbey, and then afterwards from Westminster Abbey to Buckingham Palace. Now, I was always curious I just thought they got into one of those carriages, but there's 2 carriages. And when you start reading about the carriages, they're really interesting. So let me see. There's a carriage rental near. Yes, we can put on the little Cinderella carriage. Listen, these carriages are worth millions, multi-millions. They're very swanky. So the first carriage that I'm going to talk about, there's 2 of them. So there's 2 of them, and they're called the Diamond Jubilee State Coach. And then there's the other one, which is the Gold State Coach. Okay, the Diamond Jubilee State Coach is a newer coach. It was made in Australia in 2014, and it was used for the first time at the state opening of Parliament that year. And inside, I'm going to get more into detail with it, but it is, there's like primrose yellow silk. It's fitted into the interior with woods, like all of these woods that represent the British and world history. There's woods from the royal residences, from exploration in other countries and nations as well, including, guys, there's some wood in there from the Mayflower, just so, to represent America. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that again in a second. It's significantly taller than any other car on the road today. It has a huge crown on the top. It's amazingly carved with oak, from HMS Victory, which was one of the Royal Navy's 18th century flagships. Like some of the materials in this Diamond Jubilee State Coach that was made in Australia goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. It's very exciting. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about each of them in a second. So I'm giving you the overview of each coach first, then we're going to go into a deep dive. So then at the royal processional outside, when they leave the coronation, they get into this old Gold State Coach, which they say is very bumpy, by the way. And that coach was used in the coronation of William IV in 1831, but it's old. It goes back to like 1762 with George III, and it's nearly 4 meters tall. It's over 7 meters long. It weighs 4 tons. It's valued at like over $5 million. We're going to talk about that in a second. So those are the coaches. And so let's kind of get into it. There's going to be a lot of symbolism in this coronation. These coaches represent a lot of symbolism. So let's talk about the Diamond Jubilee coach first. Let me see if you guys have any questions before I move on. Questions and comments. Are they made with gold? Yeah, there's gold. There's diamonds, girl. There are diamonds in some of this. So we have, let's talk about the Diamond Jubilee State Coach. And that one's the one, Pat, that actually has diamonds on the handles. So it was initially known as the State Coach Britannia. It's a 6-horse drawn carriage. And again, I mentioned that it was for Queen Elizabeth II's 80th birthday, but it wasn't done until nearly 8 years later. So it was for the Diamond Jubilee, but it wasn't done until 2014. At first, it was just sort of something that this guy made. And they were like, we didn't really ask you to make it, but he's like, I made it. And then eventually they bought it. But the coach will be used to carry King Charles III and Queen Camilla to the coronation. So a guy named W.J. Frecklington, he constructed the Australian state coach as well. But I want you guys to hear what the materials are, because this blows my mind. First off, his intention was to create a coach that would encapsulate the history and the heritage of the United Kingdom by incorporating materials from historic buildings. So I'm going to create a whole list for you guys to hear, but the items directly related to 30 different kings and queens of England and Scotland and Ireland, the most influential characters in British history. He funded the construction himself at $250,000, which is like having a Lambo or something like that. but it's worth a lot more the minute the queen sits in it, and she has. It weighs 2.75 tons. It's 18 feet long, 11 feet high, and the Diamond Jubilee coach has electric windows, air conditioning, heating, hydraulic stabilizers, so it's not too bumpy. And here we go. Let me see if there's any other notes. Thank you so much for the super chat support. I really appreciate it. Okay, I'm from Oklahoma. I've always felt sorry for the spare. Okay, we're going to get into that, guys. That's what we all want to talk about. I'm going to try to save that to the end. And we can go on and on so that other people who wanted to actually hear about the coach, then they can go off. But I don't know how many of you really care about the coach, but we're going to talk about it anyhow, because that's how I advertised it. So the timber... Okay, it has Lord Nelson, the flagship HMS Victory from the 18th century, the Tower of London, Westminster Abbey, St. Paul's Cathedral, Edinburgh Castle, like all of these woods, Balmoral, the Mayflower, what else? Hampton Court. It's like everything is in there. It's Westminster Cathedral. I mentioned that, Windsor Castle. So all of that is in the Diamond Jubilee coach. It's already in there. Even though it was built recently, it's from all of these materials from 1,000,000 years ago. So also included, the Scottish government donated something from the Stone of the Scone wood and Ferriby boats. So they have the Britannia, which the Queen loved, and then something from the Franklin expedition, the Battle of Hastings. Guys, they're going back 1,000 years and putting some things into here. And the Battle of Waterloo too. Okay, it also has segments that are related to Shakespeare, Isaac Newton, Charles Darwin, John Harrison, Joseph Banks, Florence Nightingale, and it has virtual digital copies of the Magna Carta and the Doomsday Book inside of it. And then here we go. 24 diamonds and 130 sapphires. And the lamps that are in there were handmade by Edinburgh Crystal. So why would they want wood from the Mayflower? I think he's just trying to include everything. I think they just want, I guess the designer probably wanted it to represent all of the nations, but you make a really good point. Why would they want that? But that's what it is. That's how they created it. So that is the coach that they're taking to Westminster Abbey. It goes faster. It's basically made with all this old stuff. It has a hydraulic system, and it has all of this really cool, diamonds on the handles, That's just crazy stuff. But this is the one that's the oldest one. Okay, so let me see if there's any new comments. And then I know they're going to all be about Harry, and we're going to go, yeah. Funny. They're going to have some light reading when they're in there. Let's just read about the Magna Carta when we're going from Buckingham Palace to the coronation down the road. Okay, the Gold State coach. It's enclosed, 8-horse drawn carriage. It was commissioned in 1760 by Francis Rawdon Hastings, the first Marquis of Hastings for King George III, and designed by Sir William Chambers, built in a London workshop. It was commissioned for 3.5 million or 4.1 million based on 2022 for inflation. It was completed in 1762, and it was used for the coronation of every British monarch since William IV. And also, by the way, it's the oldest state coach that's still in condition and being used out of all of the monarchies in the world. So until the Second World War, the coach was the monarch's usual transport, even to the state openings. So the coach weighs 4 tons, 29 feet long. It looks a lot more ornate than the other one. It's just gold, gold, gold with paintings. The panels are painted by Giovanni Cipriani. And like you asked, Pat, rich gilded sculpture, gold, 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 3 cherubs on the roof. The body of the coach is slung in braces with Moroccan leather, yada, yada, yada. I mean, it's just very, very fancy. The carvings give the gold coach the air of triumphant chariot. Okay, we can see that. Now, this is the interesting part. In the words of William IV, an informal naval officer, being driven in the Gold State coach was like being on board a ship tossing in the rough sea. Queen Victoria complained of the distressing oscillation of the cabin. She would often refuse to ride in the Gold State coach. And then King George VI said that his journey from the palace to Westminster, which was not a long ride for his coronation, was one of the most uncomfortable rides I've ever had in my life. And then he had these rubberized iron-bound wheels added to it, which would afford at least some comfort. But Queen Elizabeth II also said during her coronation, the coach was horrible and not very comfortable. This is what Camilla and Charles are going to be riding in after the big coronation. So that's possibly why it was not used for her Diamond Jubilee, because she was 86 years old at the time. The coach is managed in 4 positions. They have, in other words, there's like horses, there's all of the military. When they get with the gold coach to Buckingham Palace, there'll be a whole different shout out for the king. And that is basically, what we've got. So these coaches, see what I threw in here for you guys? These coaches are, in a nutshell, like swanky. I mean, they're multi-millions. And for somebody, the king is like, I'm going to tone it down. Well, this is not toned down. They're going to do the whole pomp and circumstance, everything. Okay. So what are we going to talk? We're going to talk about America was still the colonies in the Mayflower days. Okay. Yeah. So we're going to discuss a few different details regarding Harry and Meghan. So this news just came out because this guy, Jobson was his name. He wrote a book, and it's spilling even more tea. His name's Robert Jobson, and he's writing a book called Our King or something like that. And it's about to be released. And he says, this is the tea, and then we'll go into the tea because I know Pat especially and a few other people want to talk about this. The palace aides joked that Prince Harry was a hostage to Meghan, and discussions were held at the highest level of stripping Harry. You're going to see a lot of news now about stripping titles from Harry and Meghan. It's just in the news now. It's out there. It's a buzz. They're all talking about it. In his new book, Our King, he says that jokes were made about Harry being a victim of Stockholm Syndrome, and blame was placed on Meghan for the fallout with the royals. This was before most of these officials changed their mind, because now they think that Harry is actually the driving force in everything. But of course, Meghan was the scapegoat, of course, and that he turned his back on everything he's known. Some want him demoted to Mr. Mountbatten Windsor of Montecito. Of course, that's got to be a joke. But then they say, oh, that still sounds pretty nice, because the Americans love posh Brits and they would still like it. This is from the Daily Beast. The senior aide Jobson told Jobson of Harry's rift with the family. Some blame Meghan Markle for the fallout, ignoring the fact that Harry seems to be the driving force. There we go again. So here's my question to all of you guys, and let's have a conversation about this. Okay, there's a lot of attacks on Meghan. Okay, and as you guys know, if you've been hanging around me for a while, I'm like in the middle. Like I roll a lot when it comes to Harry and Meghan. I'm like, what in the world are they doing? Like, what in the world do they think they're doing? At the same time, I can acknowledge the weirdness and the dysfunction of the royal family. And I did think all along, like, wait, why do they keep like blaming Meghan for everything? Granted, I think she could have handled things a lot differently, and I'm not a huge fan, but I also don't think they should totally be the scapegoat. So I feel that since Prince Harry is still the son of King Charles, they should leave his title alone. Well, I think he would still be considered prince, but as far as Duke and Duchess, it does represent an area. And so all of those people in that area are like, what? We really have this Duke and Duchess that are doing nothing. And yet it was a title that was bestowed upon them by the Queen when they were married, right? So, and Harry did respond in, I don't know, it was the Anderson Cooper interview or whatever, where he's like, well, what would that accomplish if they actually took, my title away? Like, what would that be? So, yes. Okay. So Mary, the route is shorter. It is shorter. It is not as crazy as they had said in the past. Okay. I wanted to talk about this too. Okay. I just think this is funny. So the Queen always used the ballet slippers nail polish, which is really pretty, from Essie, which basically looks like you don't have anything on. It's very rare that the ladies put color on their nails. It's like working at Disney. I worked at Disney as one of their like little singing princesses for years. You can't put anything on your fingers, like hardly anything. It has to be so natural. But all of the news now is that, oh my gosh, and she's getting a lot of positive press about this too. Oh my goodness, it's Easter and Kate put red nail polish on. Oh my goodness. So what do you guys think of that? I think it's great. Perhaps Andrew's dukedom should be taken away. Now that's a whole other thing. The people in York are not happy. They are not happy, and that he still has that title. And you're right. It would be kind of hypocritical. It's like, go ahead and take it away from Harry and Meghan, but like keep it with the Duke, who has a lot heavier allegations, because what really have Harry and Meghan done that have been, they've done nothing that's been really, I mean, it's scandalous in a sense, but it's not that they've done anything what you would consider illegal. That's cute that Casey has allowed the women to wear, yes. Yeah. And I think they did say that in the past, they've worn colors, especially for Easter and that type of thing. But, you know, people watch the nails, and she's always kept her nails short. Like that would be kind of hard for me. I don't have anything on my nails right now, but it's always nice to, I like a little bit of a lift on my nail, although she always looks fantastic. And people were also criticizing, or at least commenting on her dress. Like, oh my gosh, it's so blue. But think of the queen. That was all that the queen would do. And it was for a reason. Apparently she was shorter or whatever. And everybody wanted to make sure that the queen stood out so that people can kind of stay back and all of that. So I like it. I think it's great. I think she's great. There's the carriages again. Okay. So any other, let's talk about Harry and Meghan, because Pat wanted to discuss this, and I don't blame you, but the big question is, will they come? Things are getting really more intense right now. And I don't know if the king is just wanting to keep things relatively calm, and people are starting to get really ticked off. At least the people in the British press, they're like, what the, you know what, like they should make their decision and just come here already, because now it's getting to be less than a month away and they haven't made their decision on whether they're coming. Like that's very self-centered, which I personally think it is. So I, of course, would like to see them there. But then again, there's the criticism that, yeah, if they come, they're going to upstage the king and queen. What's the point at this point? The king, I believe, honestly wants to see and meet and spend more time with his grandchildren. He's in his 70s already, but he wants to see Archie and he wants to see Lilibet and spend more time with them. Now, is it the perfect time? I mean, he's going to be busy, but afterwards, I'm sure if they would have scheduled things properly and let them know, there could have been some time to carve that in. But recently in this book, it also has said that that Will and Charles never want to be alone in the room with Meghan or Harry, because they're afraid that they're going to be recording things. They're afraid that they're going to be, you know, doing something that they shouldn't be doing. And so there's that too. So what do we know? I mean, what do you think? I love the queen, but she was from a different era. The nail polish protocol can be changed. Yeah. And now what they're saying, of course, is, oh, yay, she's wearing some red nail polish. Maybe she'll bring her hemline up. Do you think Kate should bring, I mean, she's 40 something now. She's like 41. So I don't know. I think on occasion she could bring her hemline up. She wore some really cute clothes and then some really tacky ones too, when she wasn't with the royal family. I think after the coronation that Harry and Meghan are getting their titles taken away. I've heard that too, Debbie. I've heard that, you know, they're going to wait for the ball to drop till after that. But, you know, how do you leave anything open at this point then? And then I did like this point that the Daily Beast just made regarding the fact that, you know, everybody's thinking it's Meghan all the time, because she was the easy scapegoat. But the truth is that Harry makes decisions for himself and could make decisions. And he was the one with what I call like projection, like projecting everything onto everybody else. And he's just like, you know, verbally vomiting all of his therapy into the public. And so I think, you know, he needs to be held accountable. He reminds me of somebody who's never, he seems very entitled. And that is the biggest shock for me. That shouldn't be a shock when you know where he comes from. But it's clear that he wasn't really given the types of manners. And, you know, he was the queen's favorite. The queen loved her spare with Andrew. And so he was always really entitled. So I feel like he's still acting like he's entitled. I feel like he's like, you should give me this, this, and this. Well, he's like several people down in the line. And if you look at spares in general, they're not really, the highlight. You're not focusing on them as enough. So I don't know. I used to love him too, Debbie. I used to really love Harry. I think he was everybody's favorite. Fun, a little bit like he showed us that he was a little bit, an outlier, but he didn't show us that he was an angry outlier. There's nothing like an angry outlier. It's a whole other thing. And Pat, yes, the whole thing is just, there's a lot of entitlement. So it's easy for us to say, well, they should just come to the coronation. The king needs them. It's just the king himself was entitled. I mean, I don't know if it's true, but they say that he travels with his own toilet and he has to have his water in his tub a certain temperature. He has to have his own martini glass. Like, they do not operate in the real world. I feel like Kate probably has a concept of living in the real world, but it's also easy to forget if you've been living in that for 10, 15 years. It's easy to forget where you've come from. I think the king, thank you, Hasmo. I love Hasmo Basmo or Hasmo Basmo. I love that name. Thank you. Thanks for the compliment. Can the king take the prince title away from him? I think he has to have some, I don't think it can be him just alone. I think and I don't know if Parliament can do it just alone. So I think it has to be sort of a process of taking away what they call peerages. And I think that that's why he hasn't done it yet. I don't think it's as simple and as easy as just saying, oh, I'm going to take it away from you. So anyhow, also hi from Illinois. I'm an Illinois girl. I'm from Rockford, Illinois originally. My great-grandparents' home that I own, that my husband and I own, is in central Illinois. And I hope you guys stay away from the tornadoes because it's been bad. I would like to so Mary confirmed it takes an act of parliament to revoke a dukedom. Yeah, it does. And Kate has forgotten she was a commoner. Yeah, I mean, it's easy for us to kind of look at them and have our favorites. I really like her. I like her background. I love her mother, but it's true. It's true. I mean, you can't live in that long and really try to have the concept of what it's really like. They're trying, but I mean, Charles has lived his whole life with the silver spoon in his mouth, Thank you. Oh, I know. I will be doing more videos of my home because I will be working on that this summer. I like to stay away in the wintertime. Sorry. But yeah, I feel like the reason why many of us love the royal family, love to watch it, is because it is so confusing. It's confusing. It's like, do we love them because they're interesting? We like the idea. I know I like the idea of this. I don't know. I'm a big Cinderella fan. So I've always been like, coming from rags to riches, but they've just been in this place for years. And I don't know, there's so much sketchy stuff, even with the property that they all have, how much money they have, yada, 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 yada. Okay, Hasmo Bosmo, I'm going to go too in a second, but we'll talk to you guys later. And thanks for your support. I really appreciate it. Okay, one question. Okay. Go ahead. Make it PG, please. Okay. So I will wait the question, and then I would take an act of parliament. Okay. So in the royal carriages, that's just some more information for us to know. The royal regalia is coming out, which is worth millions and millions and millions. Could the queen take over from the queen? No, because the queen consort she doesn't really have that kind of authority. So she's not an heir. So she can't really take the authority. Now she could act in his place. Let's say he was out of the country and she needed to make a decision. Consorts have done that in the past. One example, all the way back to King Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon, who went into battle while she was pregnant. These are stories that they can make decisions when when they're gone, but taking over, not really. So, and then they have to just consult with the parliament. But so the answer is really no, but under certain circumstances, yeah. So I hope that doesn't probably help you at all. That doesn't help you at all. Did I put your question there? Yeah. Could the queen? Okay. It can't. What if Charles dies? Okay. So if Charles dies, then that goes to his heir, which is William. And then Queen Camilla would become a dowager queen, still, consort, but dowager. And then Catherine I guess Catherine's the consort, and, she would be the queen. So that's what would happen next. It would be William, and then it would be, Catherine would be the queen. But you would still call Camilla queen. She'd be queen dowager. So, and if it had been Diana, let's say, hypothetically, she would have been the dowager and the queen mother to the reigning king, which would have been William. So it's all this kind of complex stuff. I think I like the diamond coach best. Well, I wouldn't mind riding in that diamond coach for sure, but I really like the history with the other one, but it's fascinating. Okay, so that was all I wanted to cover, guys. Please do check out my channel. Please share my videos, and we will be coming back on. I'm going live specifically because I want to talk about the coronation and the details. It's good for us to know these things before we watch the coronation, just see these carriages go by. It's good to kind of know the symbolism because it's going to go by fast. Thank you, Hasmo, for subscribing. And then it's going to go on at 6 a.m. Eastern time in America, and I believe it's 11 in the UK. Why wasn't the husband of Queen Elizabeth II called king? That's a great question because, okay, if you want a little bit of tea, Pat, so he was called Prince Consort. Prince Consort. She made that decision not to call him king. Philip was so much more royal than Camilla. He was a prince from Greece and a Danish prince. I mean, he was royal, very royal, but she had a choice. Now, there's rumors or gossip. Again, allegedly, the reason why she's Queen Camilla and not Princess Consort, which is what the queen originally wanted to call her, the rumor, again, this is probably not true, but it has been written about in a few different books, is that Camilla, like when Andrew had to get his $12 million to kind of pay for his little, oops, that's an understatement too. It had to come out of like the royal, whatever, the savings or whatever. And the queen needed to get permission from Prince Charles to be able to pay that off for his baby brother, Andrew. His negotiating thing, and again, allegedly, we don't know if this is true, was fine, mummy. I will let you take that out, but now you have to call the queen consort, and she will be the queen. That is the rumor. I don't know if it's true, but that's fascinating to me. And it sounds like something that would be true. I don't know if you think so, but it sounds like something that would be true, in my opinion. So, okay. Only the sovereign would be called king. Is that the case? Like because I would think, could he not be called the king consort? Like, well, that's true because Queen Victoria and it was Prince Albert, Queen Elizabeth I didn't have a husband for us to think about. So I guess that is true. I guess they would never call him the king. But there's precedent for the queen to be the queen, even though she's not the reigning queen or the queen regnant. So, but regarding princess versus queen, that's what the rumor mill is saying. Again, don't know if it's true. Just letting you know what the story is. Okay, it's 23 in the UK right now where I live. It's getting late. It's getting late. Okay, guys, I will talk to you all soon. Have a great night, and we will talk to each other later. Bye. Thanks.